الله أكبر الله أكبر.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها فكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. الحمد لله رب العالمين. All praise is due to Allah. All praise is due to Allah who has guided us to this path, and we would not have been able to guide ourselves had not Allah Ta'ala guided us, had not Allah Ta'ala chosen us rather. And it is a great honor, and we've discussed this previously. Last week, as we know, February 21st marked the date that Malcolm X, rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy on him, was assassinated. So we don't want to repeat the Malcolm X Khutbah, even though it wasn't given here. Make my job easy, just repeat last week's Khutbah from another venue. But we do want to focus on two aspects of Malcolm X, his life, his personality, and two aspects that point out his greatness as a Muslim. And we should not, as Muslims, be ashamed to call people's attention to the greatness of Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik Shahbaz. As a Muslim, there are people who point out his greatness in their estimation as a Pan-Africanist. There are people who in their estimation point out his greatness as a fighter for human rights, who was moving steadily into the arena of civil rights. There are people who point out and claim him and point out his greatness as a black nationalist. And as Muslims, we should remind the people that before he was any of that, he was a Muslim. And the two characteristics that were mentioned are characteristics that are crucial in terms of understanding what it means to be a Muslim. And these two characteristics, one based on a verse in the Quran, one based on a hadith of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they indicate the nuanced and complex nature of the Muslim. The Muslim is not a simple person. If you look at the Muslim social habits, you might say the Muslim is very conservative and right-wing. If you look at some of the Muslims' political stances, You might say the Muslim is very left-wing. It's difficult to categorize the Muslim. Is he or she to the left? Is he or she to the right? If you want to speak in those general terms, we say he or she is in the middle. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. We made you a middle nation, a balanced nation, in order that you will be witnesses for the people and the messenger will be a witness against you. So these two characteristics from the Quran. Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran, مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبًا وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. Amongst the believers there are those who are truthful in the covenant they've convened with Allah. In the covenant, in the oath they've taken with Allah. Amongst them there are those who have fulfilled the oath to the fullest. In other words, they've made the ultimate sacrifice, they've given their lives. And amongst them there are those who are waiting their turn. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبًا وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. And they've never wavered in their resolve. So as we all know, Malcolm X made the ultimate sacrifice. He gave his life. He gave his life. And therefore he is a martyr of Islam. He gave his life for his belief, for his principles. And we should, as part of claiming our language, there are people who are hesitant to use the term martyr. They'll think of suicide bombers. And so we distance ourselves from the language, shaheed, shuhada. وَيَتَّخِذَ مِنْكُمْ شُهَدَاء. In order that Allah will take from your ranks martyrs. And in many instances we do that because we don't want to go through the trouble of having to define what it means to people. So we just remain silent and let someone else define it. So we're hesitant to use jihad. We're hesitant to use martyr. And the hesitation is because those words have been defined by others in such odious ways that we don't want any part of it. And in not wanting any part of it, we don't enter into the fray so that we can go about defining accurately what those terms mean. And martyr is not someone who goes into a public place, goes into a restaurant, gets on a bus, and then blows themselves up with a lot of other innocent people. That's not a martyr. That's suicide and murder. And both suicide and murder are haram and it's condemned in the strongest terms in Islam. So when you bring them together, you're bringing something that's doubly condemnable. There's no nobility in that. But there's nobility in someone like Malcolm X, who stands up in the face of overwhelming odds, in a social context where just looking at someone the wrong way could get you killed. Saying the right thing with the wrong tone of voice could get you killed. And in that context, Malcolm stood up and he said some very challenging and unpleasant things to people he knew would want to kill him. But he said them anyway. And one of the reasons he said them anyway is because he understood the meaning of jihad. Another term misused and misunderstood. They say jihad is people who murder indiscriminately, Jihad are people who make takfir of Muslims, declare Muslims to be kafir, to make their blood halal. Jihad is someone who says that Muslims who, due to circumstances beyond their control, are the only job they can find is in the police force, but the police force is associated with the government, and the government is affiliated with the Americans, and the Americans are kafir, therefore the government is kafir, and the police who are working for the kafir are kafirs, so we can kill them too. And then say this is jihad, and we are silent. Jihad is a noble struggle. And the best jihad, this is Malcolm X's jihad. أفضل جهاد كلمة حق عند سلطان جائر. The best jihad is a word of truth in the face of a tyrannical ruler. Why is that the most virtuous jihad? أفضل jihad. Because usually it will get you killed or put into prison. If you physically fight on D-Day, when the Allied forces were getting ready to invade what was France, in the face of the Nazi occupation of France, and General Patton addressed his troops. He said, don't fear death. He said, because only 2% of you are going to die. 98% of you are going to live. So go forth, knowing you're going to likely come out of this alive. 2% of you are going to die. You're not all going to die. Do 2% of the people who speak truth to tyrants, do just 2% go to jail? Just 2% get executed? It's probably, do 2% escape without their character being assassinated? Do 2% escape without their name being dragged in the mud? It's probably, it's 2% who escape that fate. 98%, that is their fate. That's why it's the best jihad. That was Malcolm's jihad. Malcolm X didn't kill anybody. He's never been indicted after he was indicted for petty crimes, and got out of jail. As a Muslim, as he understood Islam, he never had a criminal record. He was never indicted for any crimes. He never was implicated in any plot to kill anyone, to take anyone's life. So his jihad was the jihad of truth. It was the spoken jihad. It's the spoken, and it was a noble struggle, because it was a struggle that gave inspiration to a people who had no other inspiration. It was a struggle for people who had lost all hope, that gave them hope. It was a struggle that allowed people who found themselves on the receiving end of unimaginable, unfathomable methods and systems and institutions of oppression to stand up and seek their freedom, to stand up and challenge those systems, to stand up and break those chains of oppression. It was a noble struggle, and it was for that struggle that he lost his life. Now, most of us, that's not going to be the outcome of our life. Even if we decide, you know what, I'm not holding back anymore. A lot of this stuff out there is wrong. I'm going to call it for what it is. We probably won't end up like Malcolm, due to historical circumstances, the unique nature of our situation, or just who we are, not having that high of a profile, an international profile. But as the verse says, so the first group, people like Malcolm X, فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبًا, Amongst them there are those who have fulfilled their covenant and made the ultimate sacrifice. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ. And amongst them there are those who are waiting their turn. So most of us, probably the overwhelming majority of us, we aren't going to be in a situation where we're elevated to the heights Malcolm X was elevated. We're not going to be in a situation where just speaking truth to power is going to place us in a situation where we lose our lives. But each and every one of us, if we were called on to do so, should do so with no hesitation. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ. Amongst them there are those who are waiting their turn. So if speaking the truth, if working to uphold the truth is going to lead to my death, we're all going to die anyway. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. And as we were reminded last night in the lecture of Dr. Jackson, said if you're going to ridicule me or for wearing hijab, then I'm going to do it on my terms. And so if our life is going to be taken, let it be on our terms. Let it be standing up for truth. Let it be working on the behalf of the oppressed and downtrodden people of our society or this world. Let's go out on noble terms, because we're all going out anyway. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. And this is the decision Malcolm made. Malcolm, if you read some of the literature associated with the last year or so of his life, there were people who were going to bring him to Africa. Just come to Africa. Just relax, chill out, write books until all this blows over. He said no. Said, I prefer to go out on my terms, not your terms. And if it means my life, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. So he had that aspect of what it means to be a Muslim. He was prepared to die for what he believed. He was prepared to die for lofty and noble principles that would give life to someone else. Because real life is the life of dignity. As one of our Arab poets mentioned, often repeated verses, لَيْسَ مَنْ مَاتَ فَاسْتَرَاحَ بِالْمَيْتِ إِنَّمَا الْمَيْتُ مَيِّتُ الْأَحْيَاءِ إِنَّمَا الْمَيْتُ مَنْ يَعِيشُ كَئِيبًا كَاسِفًا بَالُهُ قَلِيلَ الرَّجَاءِ. The dead are the people who have expired and then they come to rest. The dead are the living dead. The dead are those who live in a state of gloom and depression, totally downtrodden, entertaining very little hope. That's the dead. And that's the dead Malcolm gave life to. That's the dead Malcolm gave life to. So if we can give life to someone, we shouldn't hesitate. And as we said, like General Patton said to his troops, 98% of you are going to survive. Most people, you're not going to get killed. But if it comes down to that, then we're ready. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. And they never wavered. They never changed in their resolve. They were straight. And the Muslim is straight. The Muslim is straight. We're not zigzagging. As Umar said, يعني يرغب لا يروغ روغان الثعلب. The Muslim doesn't zigzag like the fox. I gotta scheme over here, deal over there, I'll escape this and get around this hookum and dodge that hookum. You like a boxer dodging hookums. Like the left hookum. He's not gonna hit me with his left hookum. I gotta move, so I'm gonna. No, the Muslim is straight. The Muslim is straight. This is who I am, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for. If you like it, alhamdulillah. If you don't like it, mashallah. But it is what it is. It is what it is. And I got this job to do. I apologize if I make anyone uncomfortable, but I've accepted this task from my Lord, and it is what it is. I'm going to go straight. I'm not going to zigzag. That's one characteristic. The other one mentioned from hadith, our Prophet ﷺ, as related by Imam Muslim, and his compilation of prophetic traditions, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق. Don't consider any good you do to be insignificant, to be small and petty. لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا. Even if it's meeting your brother with a pleasant face. Now Malcolm, he met people with a pleasant face. He had that big toothy grin, that big smile, especially children and people who were passing the street. That's how he greeted them. Even when all that pressure is mounting, it seems like the CIA is after me, the FBI is after me, Hoover is after me, maybe even my old comrades in the nation, they're all after me. He didn't stop smiling. He didn't stop greeting people with a pleasant face. And this is an indication of his greatness as a Muslim. That on the one hand, he's ready to give it all up. On the other hand, he can still smile. Because his heart had transcended this world. If our hearts are wrapped up with the world will beat us down so much it will be impossible to smile. But if our hearts are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our hearts are with the source of all strength and power. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And we understand, قُلْ لَن يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا هُوَ مَوْلَانَا وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكِّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. قُلْ, say, nothing will afflict me except what Allah has already ordained for me. He is my protector, and on Him let the believers place their trust. That's a believer. Nothing's going to happen except what Allah has decreed. So I might as well relax. Because I can't escape it. If it's meant for me, I'm not going to escape it. And if it's meant to pass me by, it's not going to afflict me. Nothing will afflict me except what Allah has ordained for me. This is tawakkul. This is what it means to internalize tawheed. Tawheed isn't a list of things in a book. Tawheed rububiyyah, tawheed uluhiyyah, tawheed asma' wa sifat, wa ma shabaha dhalik. Tawheed is internalizing into the depth of one's being, La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. That's Tawheed. When it's internalized, how is that expressed? Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen la sharika lah wa bidhalika umirtu wa ana awwalul muslimin. Say, surely my prayer, my sacrifice, my living, my dying are all for Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. La ilaha illallah. Are all for Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, and with this I've been commanded, and I'm the first to submit as a Muslim. So may Allah Ta'ala bless us to be Muslims. May Allah bless us to be people who, if the circumstances called on it, we're willing to give our lives. For principle, there's an example mentioned, they don't use a gun, so they use a knife. Someone put a knife, we use a gun, that's more common in our era. If someone gave you a gun and tell you, put this gun to that person's head, and then they put a gun to your head, and they said, if you don't kill that person, I'm going to kill you. Say, I'm not killing that person. So I'm a murderer. So, it was nice. I tell my wife I loved her. Why? Because principle. I don't take innocent lives. I don't take innocent lives, and I'm not going to compromise my principles to save my own life, if that compromise is going to endanger someone else. So if it's not going to, then that's what taqiyya means, which is another term that's been hijacked. Now there are people out there, taqiyya, Muslim, every Muslim lies. It's taqiyya, it's part of their religion, dissimulation. No, if your life's at stake, if someone says to you, if you don't say, I'm not a Muslim, I'm going to kill you. You can say, I'm not a Muslim, to save your life. Well, if they say, if you don't kill that person, I'm going to kill you, that's another issue. Because no, I'm not going to take an innocent life, even if it means my life. So what about taking an innocent life when your life isn't at stake? How grave is that? So in any case, those are big issues, and we should have the fiber to deal with those issues. On the other hand, we should have the ability to deal with the small things. لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق. Don't belittle the smallest things. Martyrdom and martyr and jihad is a big thing. Just everyday interactions. Smile with your brother. Smile, sister. Greet your sister with a smiling face. Brother, smile when you see the sister coming up the sidewalk, and then keep going. Give her a nice salam and keep going. But it might make her day. She's like, man, everyone looking at me like I'm a criminal. There's a Muslim brother. He said, Assalamu alaikum, sister. MashaAllah. Keep going. Make her day. Don't, children, take time. The Prophet ﷺ took time. He smiled for the children. He patted them on their head. I've seen people that are so obsessed with their thing. They have the subha doing their dhikr. Kid comes up, kid, you're interrupting me. Get out of here. Take time for the children. Take time for the elderly. Visit the sick people. Give a brother a hug. Show some love. The little things. That's what makes it easier to engage the big things. Then it becomes light. Because we know, in spite of the pressure, there's a lot of pressure on Muslims now. In spite of the pressure, in spite of the challenges, in spite of the discrimination, in spite of the defamation, I can still enjoy life. Because in spite of all those big things, I can still get great pleasure and satisfaction out of the little things. So don't let those little things pass you by. Savor them, enjoy them, share them. And then it makes it easy for us to keep on struggling to address some of those big things. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين يا قوم استغفروا الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين وكونوا مع الصادقين وكونوا مع الصادقين. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has truly blessed us. He's blessed us with faith. Imagine, even if you're in dire straits, imagine being in dire straits with no faith. Even if you're encountering difficulties and hardship, imagine dealing with those with no faith, no hope of any worldly relief, no hope of any otherworldly relief, otherworldly compensation, worldly compensation, and no hope of the patience in dealing with those hardships being rewarded both in this world and the next. They're rewarded in this world because dealing with hardships and tribulations is what builds great character. Great character isn't formed in a vacuum. Like a person who doesn't deal with any challenges and they grow up and they become an adult, you have a word for them, right? A spoiled brat. Right? A 30-year-old brat. This person's empty. Like a glass someone took and emptied everything out. It's empty. He's shallow. He's more shallow than that puddle out there in front of the masjid. Shallow water. It doesn't even reach my ankles. Shallow water. We used to call people that, right, growing up, shallow water. We want to be deep people. We become deep people dealing with hardship, dealing with trials and tribulations, challenging ourselves. Challenging ourselves. This is difficult. I'm going to do it. And one way to do it, don't look at where you're going. Look at what you're doing right now. If you want to climb Mount Everest, it's almost 30,000 feet high. And you're just trucking up and you're looking at the top, man, I'm never going to get there. You give up. Well, if you say, listen, it's 30,000 feet. I'm just going to do 1,000 feet a day. I'm never going to look up. So you just do your 1,000 feet. At the end of the month, where are you going to be? On top of the mountain. So as we deal with the Mount Everest in our path, it might be the Mount Everest of getting a decent job. It might be the Mount Everest of finding a decent spouse. It might be the Mount Everest of finding a decent school to put my children in. It might be all of these mountains. Just do your 30,000 feet a day. Then set camp, sit down, relax, light the fire, do a little reading, play with the children, wake up in the morning, do your 1,000 feet. Before you know it, you'll climb mountain after mountain after mountain. You get stronger and stronger and stronger and more resilient. And character will build, and that will benefit us in this world. Because people will see that. They'll see that. And when you go for that interview, they'll see character. When you're dealing and wrestling with, you're trying to get this degree part-time and juggling between work and the children and the this and the that fortitude will benefit you. And then in the next world, the reward for things is commensurate with the struggle. The one who recites Quran and sounds like Husari or Abdul Basit or Minshawi gets one reward. Because it flows off their tongue. They get the reward of their beautiful recitation. The one who recites the Quran and struggles. The Prophet ﷺ used the word yatatata, onomatopoeia. The word sounds like the meaning. Like struggling and tripping over their tongue, tatata. So you read the Quran, it sounds like tatata. Gives two rewards. The reward of the recitation and the reward of the struggle. So no struggle that we are engaging in this life goes unrewarded. Never forget that, brothers and sisters. No struggle that you're engaging in, we're engaging in this life goes unrewarded. There's a great reward, and that reward will manifest itself bi'idhnillah in this life. And it will definitely manifest itself in the next. Allahumma ighfir lil muslimin wal muslimat wal mu'minin wal mu'minat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat. Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana wa hab lana min ladunka rahmah innaka antal wahhab. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وتوفنا مسلمين واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من الهم والحزن ونعوذ بك من العجز والكسل ونعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل ونعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال ونعوذ بك من الفقر إلا إليك ومن الذل إلا لك ومن الخوف إلا منك. اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معاصيك، ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا بها جنتك، ومن اليقين ما يهون علينا مصائب الدنيا، ومتعنا بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقوتنا ما أحييتنا، واجعله الوارث منا، واجعل ثأرا على من ظلمنا، وانصرنا على من عادانا، ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا، ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا، ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك ولا يرحمنا يا أرحم الراحمين. واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا، أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أتم الصلاة. يرحمني
الله أكبر الله أكبر.